So this is the Blues One podcast. Today we are asking Grammy Award-winning producer Jeeves about music, AI, and everything in between. And so this is with one Grammy win and then 7 nominations across songwriting, production, and
engineering as well, some technical stuff.
what is the origin of your story?
So long story short, I'm half French, half American. So I was born in the US, but I moved to France when I was 2. And then it's countryside, Loire Valley, beautiful little town, tiny with vineyards all around it. There's a little church and it goes down this way and you can just see, the view forever. So I was a kid there and grew up going back and forth from France to the US, going to schooling a year and one or the other, going back and forth because my father would teach in both countries back and forth as well. So luckily I was able to keep the English going enough, where I can still talk today. And then I studied in Paris. There's a school, it used to be called the Studio des Variétés. I don't think it exists anymore, but it's kind of like a fame school, where you kind of do everything. You act and you dance and you do all these, you sing and you play instruments. And so I did that for about a year and a half. And then after that, I went to Berklee College of Music. So in the late 80s, so like actually I think it was 1990, gosh. Yeah, so I went to Berklee for a year and a half as well. I wasn't really there to get a diploma or anything like that. I was just there to actually learn my craft because I was already working with artists at the time. So I figured if I'm coming to LA, I might as well just kind of polish up on certain things, and which I did, which was great. And I recorded a whole demo while I was in Boston, and so I was kind of ready to go when I came to LA, and I was like 20 or something, 21 or 22, I forget. Came out here, it was in the middle of the 90s hip hop rap vibe, gangster rap and everything. And interestingly enough, when I arrived, I wasn't really doing music at first because I didn't know anybody. So I did extra work in the movies for 2 years, just like background work. And I worked on a ton of movies. I was not desperate at all in that industry because I wasn't trying to be an actor. I was just trying to work on my music, and I was trying to meet singers and artists, recording artists in general. And I figured they'd be probably on set, like doing extra work as well. And I'd be in the background somewhere, with my guitar and like a cassette machine, a tape machine, working on the song or something, or who knows what I was doing. So every once in a while they'd come and get me. Hey, you sir over there, can you come and they'd give me like a part. It was great. They'd give me like some words to say and things. And so I quickly got my SAG and AFTRA memberships that way. And so I was working a lot. I was actually making some decent money just being an extra, like like extra that gets parts every once in a while. So that lasted about 2 years. So I had artists in my apartment studio for about a year or so. And then I met up with another guy who went by Carlito, as in like Carlito's Way. He was very much that guy. He was great. He was an interesting character, but yeah, he was all kind of mafia guy. So we did a lot of work together. He wasn't a musician, but he was like the owner of the place kind of. And so I had the studio with this guy, and then we started getting a lot of clients in, and I was just, a ton of rappers. The crazy thing is that I didn't even know what hip hop was at the time. I knew what funk was. I was a funk guitar player in France and in my own band. So I kind of had to learn quickly what the hip hop was. Like, okay, it's pretty easy. Slow down funk with more bass, and they had 808 at the time already and all that low frequency stuff. And so I started doing a bunch of tracks.
The evolution of music genres through time is actually fascinating. So, from, jazz essentially kind of came funk, and then from funk, hip hop and rap started to evolve.
Yeah, because for me, it's interesting too, because I started with classical music when I was 10, like play guitar, actually 6 to 10. And then I started playing rock and other things. But then I went to jazz, and then I went same thing. I kind of the same progression in a way.
In terms of the Grammy with Vito Cuevas, the Latin and the jazz sound, like there's overlap in terms of the percussion a lot. And so, but before Vito, you did tracks with Tupac, with Ice-T, Giorgio Moroder, Britney Spears on Giorgio Moroder.
Yeah, so the Giorgio Moroder, Britney Spears, that was after. That was much later. That was in, when was that?
2015?
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, so that was after.
Yeah, that was after Beto Cuevas. But yeah, all the rap stuff that was in the 90s. That was during their gangster rap era. So that was like, I still do hip hop now, but it's very different. It's a whole different thing. But yeah. Oh my gosh, that was what a time that was. It was an insane. People were in there with guns and things, and like they there was the main rappers, and then there was the buddies, the homies, and all that, and the whole crew was there. It was funny because the rock and roll vibe had their own parallel way, wired up in a different way, two different vibes.
For the days of auto tune, there were more the days of rap battles and gunplay, and so
yeah.
And it's like, well, the studio is gorgeous. Everything from the design to the lighting is great. Like there were times when people would accidentally raise the roof with bullets.
So yeah, at one point in that first studio, it was on Sunset Boulevard. Yeah, that was we had two of them. Yeah, Sunset, whatever. It was in Hollywood. At one point we had a party. It was like it was a New Year's party, and we were all just whatever, just walking around and laughing and playing music and everything. And then when midnight struck, everybody was like, "Yay!" And one of the guys just pulled out his gun and started shooting through the ceiling. Luckily, there were no holes through the ceiling to the next floor.
And so a lot has changed between the types and cycles of production between the 90s and present day in terms of building something that people love and sort of pouring money into that and funding it to paid media and proof of concept prior to publication. And so how has that fueled your art and your productions from the times of the earlier days when shots were being fired off to the Grammys in present day?
I mean, yeah. So a lot of years went by between that time and then the Grammy time, but because I went through the whole progression when I was working there at the studio. So I was working with a lot of artists. So Tupac was one of them, for example. It's just one of those weird industry stories where that stuff happens a lot. But so I was with a guy that I was working with. His name was Henji, and I was working with him on doing these. I was doing the tracks, and he was kind of helping me like get inspirations. He'd bring in a bunch of songs that were out there. He'd show me what they were doing and stuff. I would just I'd vibe off of these tracks, and I just did a bunch of tracks. At that point, I was doing tons and tons and tons of tracks, and for these rappers, and they were just, well, I like this one and whatever. So at one point, I met up with them at Ice-T studio. There was another guy there, Valentino. Yeah, the engineer was there as well, and I was playing a bunch of the tracks that I'd done, and Tupac just walked in while that was happening, and I happened to be playing a track that he liked, and so he's like, "Oh, can I spin on this?" He went in there and he did like a verse and a chorus, just kind of off the top of his head, and then he left. He went with his buddy. They wanted to get some weed or something, and then he never came back, so he never finished the song. And so we all kind of left, and then it was basically over for that at that point. So we were like, okay, well, hopefully we'll finish this or whatever. And months went by, and then he got shot. So like nothing happened. And so then that was okay. Well, I guess nothing's gonna happen with this. And years went by, and then eventually the same track that I'd done that he'd rapped on, some other rapper that I knew did another song to it, and whatever. But nothing happened with that either. And years went by, and then we're talking like 2000. But anyway, long story short, like 10 years later, at least 15 years later, I was touring with my band, and I was in Denver, Colorado. I go to Tower Records at the time to buy some CDs, like, because every Tuesday I used to go buy CDs and listen to a bunch of things. And even while I was touring, I was doing that because I had a computer. I had a CD-ROM drive. I could listen to CDs that way. So I go in there, and I hear the song. But it's a different version of the song, but there's some leftover things and that were in there, and his voice, Tupac's voice was there. And I was like, whoa, what happened? I make phone calls, and I call my publisher, I call my lawyer. I'm like, what's going on here? Turns out it was on the Tupac Resurrection soundtrack. It had already gone platinum, I believe, by then. And I wasn't even aware of it. What saved me was the fact that, because I couldn't prove, I didn't have the master because it was an Ice-T studio, but I still had the original track, but that doesn't really matter because I had to prove that I had done it before and all that kind of stuff. Luckily enough, I mentioned that another rapper had done a song to that track, and he copywrote it. So because of that, the track was copywritten before this came out, and so I was able to prove that I was a part of that song, and on the original production and all that kind of stuff. So we all got credit. So I ended up getting credit on the song on the next release, and then the guy who did the other song that had nothing to do with it also got credit, because when you have a copyright, you can't just cut it up like that. So you have to join all the co-writers, even if it's different songs. So everybody got credit this time, and so it all worked out. I mean, I didn't see a dime because it was already out, but I was able to get to be on the credits for the second release. So at least it made a little bit of noise, and so that was the story on that. It's just kind of one of those things that just happens very often. You just don't get credit, or And so,
Yeah, and anytime lawyers get involved in some kind of a business transaction, whether it's venture capital, entertainment, things kind of get a little bit dicey. AI is very much a double-edged sword in production. And so like
yeah,
you've got a giant audio visual stack like across the room, and but aside from what's being produced in studios, like there's somewhat of a dichotomy between the originality. And so with AI, it's like it's easy to plow through millions or billions of pre-published tracks versus
yes,
recording and mixing them in-house. And
yeah.
so sort of how do you see that as changing the game? And then where does human authorship, originality, and sort of emotion and
Oof.
purpose play into the artistry process?
Yeah, this is a tough one. So I just, I finished my movie recently. I worked on this movie and I did an album. I recorded my album, HI, Human Intelligence. I did all the songs myself, obviously. And it was my first album for me. The album and the movie are about finding one's voice. So that's what happened. I found my voice because I'd been working for everybody else up until now. And so I did this movie and I was going to use some film crews to do the videos because I figured since nobody knows who I am, I might as well, do videos because it's a better way to showcase the songs, etc. Long story short, it was too expensive. After COVID, the industry kind of fell downwards for a while there. It's still not quite there yet. I didn't have the budget to hire a crew, so I ended up using AI to animate my movie, but it was still my artwork. Unknowingly, I actually ended up doing it ethically because I did all the artwork myself. So I did the first and last frame in Photoshop, and then I used AI to do the animation. So I used AI in a technical way where it's as if I'd hired an animator to animate the frames of pre-existing art, like the art that I've done, basically, which is a much different thing than prompting. It would have been just all AI generated. So that would have been an AI generated movie as opposed to AI animated. So there's a big difference there. So the reason why I'm talking about that is because I'm just kind of trying to draw a parallel between that and what people are doing with music. It's a very different thing because, oh gosh, because with music, you can literally, it's not like a movie. A song is much faster, much easier to put together than a movie, obviously, because it's just, you can do it alone. People work with Suno where you have a little more participation, but the job of a producer is basically lost to that because like you can sing a melody to the system and then it'll produce a track for you and it'll do it in 20 seconds and it sounds pretty damn good. It sounds better than a lot of humans. Are you talking about Rio 2? Yeah.
Real. So the artwork of that's more voxel based, and so it's going to be built in something like Houdini versus like an LLM, which is going to be pixel based. The mathematics behind how those are produced, they don't necessarily match,
Yeah.
and then the frequency and all of that gets tweaked per track.
Yes.
AI is not, it's going to take a very, very long time before AI can
Yes.
fine tune the dynamics
On separate tracks.
all of that.
Yeah. It does it all at once. When people separate the tracks after, it's AI separation. So it's not perfect. It's crazy that you have to, I don't know, you have to do it. You have to take that approach to get stems out of it. And because it didn't create the separate tracks itself. It's a miracle to me. Like, how does it, because the drums, the bass, all the instruments are there. They're just all done at once.
AI will never be Bruno Mars. AI will never be
Right.
Shakira or Beto Cuevas.
Yes, but the interesting thing though is that it does get inspired because AI has a perfect memory base. So when it's listening to millions of other artists, it knows how to, it gets inspired like we do. In other words, it's not scraping the numbers like a lot of people think. It's actually listening, remembering, and recreating something from its memory that sounds like a mixture of a bunch of things, which is kind of like it's inspired like humans are in a way, except it does a much faster job at spitting something out. It's like when we think about a song, like if I think about a song, I do think about the whole thing as one. That's kind of what it's doing, except it's doing it in a much more precise and sophisticated way. The better it gets at it, the more we're going to work with AI to get stuff done faster. But we're always going to want to work without AI as well, because we want to create our own art as well.
AI is fascinating. Like it's incredibly powerful. It's about precision and raw efficiency, and the whole thing is just about doing that as numerically accurate. And would you mind talking a little about tracks with Giorgio or Moroder?
Yeah, the Giorgio Moroder experience was great. I worked on that with Rainy Shackney. We did like 4 songs on that, and but I did a lot of the hands-on production myself. I was going back to my hometown in France when that came up. The Britney song came up. What was it called again? It was the
Tom's Diner.
Tom's Diner. Yes. Yeah. So the remix of that, basically remix. So I got her voice So they sent me her vocal, and that was in 2000. It was a while back. But I had my laptop in France, and since the time difference, it was like 4 o'clock in the morning there, and when I received that, and I started working on it. So I was in the veranda or the patio, the outdoor patio of this house in France, in the middle of the country with the view out there. But except it was dark. It was 4 in the morning. I was in my childhood home working on a Britney remix. To me, that just felt weird because I kind of felt back like being in like childhood, like being a kid in this house and like working on the Britney Spears track and doing this remix with my headphones on, and it was just dark outside and in the French countryside. It was just, to me, that was a cool experience. It felt like there was a big dichotomy there, just the different situations, the memory of childhood and then the grandness of this project. It felt, it's pretty big, So that was a lot of fun.
Tom Steiner is one of those tracks that has been like remixed.
Yeah.
You got the 2014 Latin Grammy for producing with Vito Cuevas, and then you've got
that was best Latin pop album, I believe, 2014 or 2013. 2014, yeah.
Okay.
And there was also a nomination of best songwriter on that album too, but yeah, that was just a nomination. Just a nomination. It's great. Nothing wrong with a nomination. Yeah, the cool thing is that they're all Latin Grammy nominations, and there's this one Grammy as well. And there's a reason. I fell in love with the whole Latin vibe, and I was working with Claudia Brandt a lot for a lot of years. She's a huge Latin songwriter, and so just over the years, just a bunch of Grammys came up because of that. And David Bisbal, that was more recent. So I believe I had 3 nominations on that. It was best album, I think, and then the songwriter, producer, and then the album, the producer and engineer. So yeah, those were the nominations for that. And then so Shakira won that year. So that kind of, but it was great to be there and be part of the whole nominated situation. I'm trying to think who else I got a nomination on. Oh, DJ Kane. Yeah, that was the first one. It was in 2003 or something. DJ Kane. That was for best producer, I believe, and songwriter as well. So those were those nominations. So it was like a total of 7 nominations. 1 win and then 6 nominations.
Okay. I'd appreciate the chance to touch on masters quickly, just because I was having this random conversation with ChatGPT the other day, and it's like the producers who own masters, or even when musicians actually acquire the masters for the individual tracks or albums, those are like the people who own the game. ChatGPT have actually dubbed them like God mode. So in terms of like the legal and the business aspects of that, and so you see masters themselves like those are going to be a thing of the past, and like how do you see that sort of rippling throughout the industry? And so I would be curious to sort of see where you imagine that all going.
It's interesting. Actually, I hadn't really thought of that aspect of it where, people sell their masters to a large company, and then the company sells it to who knows what. And after a while, who knows where it is. And then it ends up with AI or who knows what. And then AI uses it to create other things and whatever.
In terms of sort of like, like rights, royalties, residuals of sort of agreements behind sort of distributing like the tracks from masters.
There's always that thing out there that's out there. It's just an option that's there. But there's pros and cons to that because you lose everything after that, and that's it. And then you got to start all over again. I know I have a few friends that did that, a few artists that did that, and they regret it. But as far as the results of what it would, if masters are all kind of just out there, I haven't really thought about that one. It's more of a, gosh, who knows what's going to happen. It's in the hands of the world, including AI itself. So
I've got.
So here's an interesting one. Like living off of CDs, that was amazing. Like you didn't have to have a single. If you sold an album, if you had a song that was on an album that did well, you could make a good amount of money. You could live off of that. So that was my first situation for a long time. And then when was that? Napster happened at the same time as the financial. The housing crisis. That was around 2008 or 9-ish. There was 9/11, Napster, that happened about the same time. The economy just fell apart then, and all the record labels just kind of lost most of their employees and everything. Everything kind of went downhill at that point. And then there was like a 2 or 3 or 4 year period where music just wasn't doing well at all. And then after that, iTunes took over, Apple took over. And then the downloads started taking over, building, growing. And then I remember being at a place where 2 or 3 years later, I was like, oh, great, I can live off of this again. And for 4 or 5 years there, it was really good. It was back to kind of normal like it used to be with the downloads. And then that's when the streaming started happening. And then that's when everything just got all destroyed all over again. So now we're still in that weird place where, we're making pennies on, to get $1,000. I mean, if you have 1 million streams, you make like, I forgot what it is, like $600 or something that you divide amongst everybody. So you end up with a nice meal, or something like that. 1 million streams, that sounds amazing, but it really isn't. So you don't make that much off of that. Maybe $1,000, depending on which platform you're going through. So yeah, divided amongst the writers, the producer, manager, lawyer, who knows what your situation is. And yeah.
After lawyers and managers, probably nothing.
Like literally nothing. So you have to find other ways. That's why there's influencers out there. Hey, I'm talking about me now. Who cares about my music? Or, hey, what's up, guys? Whatever. I have a zit right now. You have to keep up with everything. And I'm just glad that I did my movie when I did it, because it was right at the beginning where AI was doing a good job. It was making good. The physics were good. There was a lot of mistakes, of course, a lot of quirkiness, which was actually, okay, I don't even want to go there. That's another story. Yeah, I'm just glad I did it when I did it, because now AI is just expanding, and whatever I did, you'll be able to do that within a prompt. I mean, sure, it'll be different, because my vision is in that project, because it's my art, but you'll be able to do a whole movie within minutes, pretty soon. And so I'm just glad it's out there. It's the first long AI animated movie. So I'm kind of excited about that.
All right, awesome. I'll be sure to check it out. And thanks again for doing this.
Yeah, thank you.
Awesome.
Well, pleasure.